Am I the only one who is sick and tired of being told to pick up my trash? And we have plenty of janitors who are paid to do it all.
That's young Stephen Miller, and he's always been an asshole. He's Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor. He's also known as Trump's brain. Leaked emails show he's a white nationalist, which isn't surprising given that he's behind immigration policies like family separation and the Muslim travel ban. His emails show that in 2015 and 16, he promoted white nationalist books, websites, and conspiracies to editors at Breitbart, a far-right news site. More than 80% of the 900 plus emails reviewed focused on race or immigration, referring to the debunked conspiracy theory that non-white people are deliberately wiping white people off the planet. He referred to President Calvin Coolidge in his emails multiple times, backing his eugenics-based immigration policies once praised by Hitler. He was upset when some retailers stopped selling Confederate flags and symbols after the Charleston church shooting by white supremacist Dylan Roof, and encouraged Breitbart to create a counter-narrative. He often recommended articles from white nationalist websites like American Renaissance and Be There to highlight interracial crime. He pushed for coverage of The Camp of the Saints, a French novel loved by white nationalists for its racist depiction of non-white immigrants. He loves pushing false racist narratives so much that in 2017, as Trump's senior advisor, he reportedly blocked the release of a government study showing that refugees had a positive fiscal impact. But that's not all. He's friends with Richard Spencer, the most notorious white nationalist in the US. Spencer was a central figure to the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in 2017. This guy went to high school with Miller and had a lot to say.
Stephen Miller was never bullied in high school. Stephen Miller was the bully. He bullied the kids who are already marginalized by our society, and he continues to do that from the White House today.
This has got to be one of the most terrifying headlines I have seen out of the Trump administration, and with the last 100 days, that is saying a lot. Stephen Miller looks like he's leading the pack to be the next national security advisor. And if you do not know who Stephen Miller is, he is the reason that we have this brainchild of immigration policy that is the Trump administration. Take a listen to him just 2 days ago.
Let's just take a moment, number one, to express our gratitude to El Salvador for agreeing to take some of the most dangerous terrorists off of America's streets and to put them into a safe environment where they cannot continue to engage in acts of terrorism or coordination with the Maduro regime.
Stephen Miller has a history of supporting white supremacy ideology. He has encouraged alt-right and far-right publications like Breitbart to post white supremacy rhetoric. And his immigration policy is one of the harshest we have ever seen. We are going to continue to see this level of cruelty in immigration policy if Stephen Miller takes on the National Security Advisory role.
You ever wonder what happens when a high school troll grows up and gets access to federal power? You get Stephen Miller. And this man didn't just whisper in Trump's ear, he wrote the whole damn playbook. Stephen Miller isn't just some advisor. He's the author behind Trump's most cruel, racist, and authoritarian politics. And he did it quietly, in a suit, all while pretending that it was about national security. You remember the Muslim ban? That was Miller. Family separation at the border? That was Miller. Trying to strip citizenship from immigrants legally living here? Yep, Miller. He's the reason zero tolerance became a government slogan. The man crafted policy like it was fan fiction for fascists. And you want to talk about connections? Stephen Miller was mentored by Richard Spencer, the actual white nationalist who coined the term alt-right. They went to Duke together, and Miller invited him to campus. Let that sink in. The dude writing U.S. immigration policy was once boosted by a literal neo-Nazi. And don't think he disappeared when Trump left the first time. He started a legal group called America First Legal, designed to sue the government every single time it tried to be decent. Trying to stop DEI programs? That's Miller. Attacking asylum protections? That's Miller. Lawsuits to block civil rights policies under the radar? Also Miller. And the scariest part is that he's not a loudmouth. He's a strategist. He's not tweeting insults. He's writing executive orders. He learned that power isn't about being liked. It's about embedding your ideology so deep within the system that even after you're gone, your fingerprints stay on the walls. Stephen Miller doesn't just advise Trump. He built a machine, one fueled by fear, whiteness, and legal loopholes. And it's still running. It's just a little quieter now. So we all know the bigotry has definitely resurfaced. We can see that in the court dockets, the school bans, and the borders. Stephen Miller never left. He just sharpened his horns and put on a nicer tie.
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Ideological Stories. In today's video, there's something that I want to talk about that's really important. And I've heard people call out Stephen Miller. And who is this Stephen Miller? Stephen Miller is a former senior advisor and a speech writer to President Donald Trump. And he has become one of the most controversial and polarizing figures in recent American political history. Now, his open embrace of white nationalist talking points, especially in the assertion that white people should be the only ones in America. This is not just a reflection of a personal prejudice. This is a symbolism of a broader ideological war being waged against multiculturalism, immigration, and racial equality in the United States. Miller's ideology and influence are not just offensive, they are dangerous, and they reflect a systemic regression to a racist framework that may up the US had moved beyond. Now, to understand why Stephen Miller is such a serious problem to America, I think it's important for us to understand and consider the historical context of his ideology. Now, remember, the notion that America is or should be a white nation is rooted in colonialism, genocide, and slavery. Talk about from the extermination and displacement of Native Americans to the enslavement of Africans and exclusion of Asian immigrants through the laws like the Chinese Exclusion Act. White supremacy has been central to America's formation. Now, Miller's views revive this dangerous legacy, promoting racial purity as a political ideology under the guise of national security and broader control. These statements and policies echo the same racial logic justified during Jim Crow segregation and Nazi eugenics. I'm your host and presenter Eugene Talk Stories. You're going to be seeing how people are reacting to this Trump administration, where Stephen Miller was the architect, and you see all the problems that people are going through today. Is the one who is reinforcing them. So buckle up for this video as you're going to get people's opinion in regards to this. So buckle up for this video. I'll be back. If you're watching us for the first time, kindly consider subscribing to the channel, join our membership, and really get what we can offer you. But until then, let's watch the video. I'll be back.
If someone can get this to Taco Stephen Miller, that would be great. Stevie, a word. Eugenics and white supremacy. A masterclass in failed pseudoscience, historical imbecility, and mathematical malpractice. How to build a hate movement with zero intellectual foundation, Stevie. Pay attention. You're about to get schooled. History, the ultimate cell phone. The master race that couldn't even win a war. Nazi Germany spent years obsessing over Aryan purity, only to lose World War II to a coalition of inferior races, women, and a wheelchair-bound president. Confederacy fought to preserve white supremacy, then surrendered to a guy named Ulysses. Apartheid South Africa collapsed faster than Trump's TikTok stock. Key fact, every white supremacist regime in history has failed, collapsed, or been memed into irrelevance. Eugenics, a movement of inbred thinkers. Founding fathers, Francis Galton. Darwin's cousin died childless. Charles Davenport, eugenics pioneer, married his cousin. The gene pool was so shallow it needed a lifeguard. American legacy. Forced sterilizations of 60,000 plus people later revealed to target poor whites they deemed degenerate. Biology laughs at your purity. Genetic reality check. Pure whites? Europeans carry Neanderthal DNA, Middle Eastern ancestry, and Siberian migration markers. Your bloodline is a smoothie of stolen genetics. Melanin superiority. Dark skin has higher UV resistance, slower aging, and superior folate protection. Light skin, a vitamin D deficiency adaptation. The IQ myth, a problem for racists. Ashkenazi Jews and East Asians outscore white supremacists on IQ tests. Within group genetic diversity, and Africa dwarfs all other continents. Translation, black people are more genetically varied than the entire white race. Heritability is not hierarchy. IQ is 60 to 80% environmental. Your race science is as rigorous as flat earth geometry. Psychology, the cringe of the weak. Authoritarian personality disorder. Adrono, 1950. Symptoms: blind obedience to strong men, fear of outsiders, and crippling insecurity masked as superiority. Treatment: touch grass, read a book, and stop LARPing as a Viking. Cognitive Dissonance Hall of Fame. Claim: we're the apex of evolution. Can't handle spicy food, lactose intolerance rates through the roof, and sunburns in 10 minutes. Claim: white genocide. Reality: white birth rates are declining because your ideology makes you fucking undateable. Mathematics: when stats betray stupidity. The demographic doom. By 2045, whites will be a U.S. minority, not because they're replacement, but because your movement's fertility rate is lower than Biden's approval rating. Mixed race populations are the fastest growing group. Your pure grandkids will list 23andMe as their heritage. Economic irony. Countries with more diversity have higher GDPs. Every white supremacist ethno-state proposal, see Idaho, collapses because nobody wants to live in your racist theme park. Your ideology is extinct, and your genes are next. Stay mad that your master race peaked at burning crosses and losing court cases. The rest of us will be over here building the future. Your movement is just a support group for men who can't get laid. Eugenics was the OG participation trophy for losers who couldn't compete. White supremacy, because failing at civilization once wasn't enough. The Great White Phase Out. How evolution is dropping the pale prototype and why racists can't handle it. The science. Melanin is winning. White skin equals a temporary glitch. Origin. A recent mutation 8,000 years ago in Europeans due to low UV exposure and vitamin D desperation. Genetic weakness. Higher rates of skin cancer, folate deficiency, and premature aging compared to melanated skin. Future forecast. As global migration increases, light skin's evolutionary advantage disappears. Even Iceland is getting darker. Mixed race boom. Darwin's middle finger to purity. Fact: 2050, mixed race people will be the fastest growing demographic. Pew Research. Genetic superiority. Hybrid vigor. Heterosis means diverse DNA, resists disease, broadens immunity, and outbreeds inbred ideologies. Colonizers' bodies rejecting their own ideology. Sunburned conquistadors. Spanish invaders in the Americas died of heat stroke while indigenous people thrived. British colonists in India withered under the sun as locals laughed in melanin. Modern fragility. Australia, highest skin cancer rates in the world. Thanks, pale genes. Vitamin D industry. A 1.3 billion crutch for people evolution left behind. The psychological meltdown, it's not genocide, Stevie, it's genetics. White supremacy's existential crisis. Claim: white genocide. Reality: white people are just bad at reproducing. Low birth rates, high intermarriage. Cope mechanisms: blaming minorities for their own dating app failures. The Great Replacement Theory fatal flaw. Math problems. Even if 0 immigrants arrived, white birth rates are below replacement level. Darwin's verdict: adapt or die. Spoiler: they're choosing door number 2. Your genes are opting out. Stay mad, Stevie. Your ancestors survived the Ice Age only for your bloodline to quit from Tinder rejection and SPF 50 dependency. White nationalists fighting to preserve the only race that needs sunscreen indoors. Your purity is as stable as a Republican's marriage vows. Evolution. We're retiring this model. White supremacists. But I didn't get the memo. Did you get the memo, Stevie?
Stephen Miller is poised to make a fortune off of Trump's mass deportation agenda. According to Miller's brand new financial report, he bought between $100,000 and $250,000 in stock in Palantir, the surveillance tech company that's helping Trump carry out mass deportations. If you're not familiar, Palantir was created by right-wing billionaire Peter Thiel and named after the Seeing Stones in Lord of the Rings, which should piss off any Tolkien fan. Stephen Miller, Trump's chief Homeland Security advisor, bought the stock in Palantir after Trump left office, while he was still outlining Trump's mass deportation plan, and since then Palantir has raked in more than $900 million in government contracts. In fact, Palantir has become the top performing company on the S&P 500 in 2025, surging more than 80% this year alone. And just last month, the Trump administration tapped Palantir to build a massive database that will serve as a surveillance tool for the US government, storing our personal information, medical data, bank account numbers, and disability status. And we already know what Trump wants to do with it: use it to hunt down immigrants and punish his political enemies. That's why labor unions and civil rights groups have filed lawsuits to block it. Last month, more than a dozen former Palantir employees even signed an open letter to Silicon Valley urging them to resist the Trump administration's techno-authoritarian power grab. And here's the kicker: the guy helping design the policy behind Trump's mass surveillance state, Stephen Miller, stands to make a fortune off of it, because who says that fascism can't be profitable?
Breaking news: Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff to Donald Trump, has between $100,000 and $250,000 worth of Palantir stock in his child's account that has just been discovered. Why is this a big deal? Palantir is the company that ICE is using to help with all these deportations and with tracking immigrants. In addition, Palantir is the same company that they're now looking to build this massive tracking system for all of us using our personal data collected through Doge under Elon Musk. And this company is owned predominantly by Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, who you may not know who he is, very involved with Heritage Foundation, with the far-right wealthy, is a billionaire, and he is the one who brought J.D. Vance into everything. He is the one that made J.D. Vance some of what he is, and definitely the one who put J.D. Vance where he is now politically. And all this is tied together, and it's needless to say always about money, but this was hidden in a child's stock account. And not quite sure how we found out about it, but it's breaking in the news as we speak now. So there you have it. Always money with these Republicans. If it's not money, they're doing something. I can't say that. Something else they shouldn't be doing. We'll leave it at that. Love to my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, and my burned out light bulbs. $100,000 to $250,000 of Palantir stock in his child's account. Try to hide it. Looks like that looks like to me. What do you think?
1 million FBI man-hours spent on the border, Stephen?
So you're right. This is the thing that gives me the greatest concern about the future of this country, is the millions of unvetted, unchecked, and just unknown foreign nationals who have been deposited into this country, not to mention the millions more of visa overstays embedded into all of our communities, some operating at the direction and control of foreign governments, foreign enemies, foreign terrorist organizations, not to mention the cartels, which have spread so much bloodshed across this hemisphere, that do business with some of our worst adversaries. But it's why, Sean, and I'll say this now, it's why it's so important to pass the president's big, beautiful bill. Because that legislation hires 10,000 new ICE agents.
If you're wondering why LA right now, look no further than this man. It's not just Stephen Miller's dead eyes and his frequent ticking that cause people to question his humanity. It's his lack of empathy. And it always baffles me that this man, a known white nationalist, has the nerve to think that he is genetically superior to anyone. Hatred wears a body down. For context, Stephen Miller is younger than me. And while I'm sure we will continue to debate Stephen Miller's humanity, one thing is clear: the energetic disruptions in his body are caused by deep imbalances. You see, tics themselves are a result of neurotransmitter imbalances. It is connected to the spewing of hatred. It gets aggravated as he gets more stressed, as his anxiety rises and his body rebels against his internal disgust. They used to keep Stephen Miller hidden, but now they've gotten so brazen that they trot him out on morning TV. That feeling that you feel when he comes up on your screen is not a mistake. It is your humanity rejecting something that is so deeply inhuman. If you'd like to learn more, I am teaching a workshop at the end of the month, and I would love to see you there.
I'm a man of faith, Stephen, and I'm certainly not a man of fear. So let's just cut to the chase. Let's not get it twisted. Your administration, this administration, and the people who support it are making history on changing who we are as a multicultural society. Folks like Stephen Miller, Pete Hegseth, and Pam Bondi and others are showing us that they don't believe in the co-equal branches of government or the checks and balances within our society. And the people in the White House, in your little bubbles, you actually think that the aura of your chaos is sustainable. Think about it. Think about it. I want you to think about it. I mean, Trump is 80 years old, and you are in your mid-40s, and some of y'all are in your mid-50s. Y'all actually think, and that's young in the modern era, you actually think it's funny and entertaining for Fox News and other outlets to show how cruel you are, how incendiary you are to the American people. Oh yeah, let's just stick it to the libs. Okay, but think about the sustainability and all the wrongdoing that you're inflicting on the people. And you think that you're going to get away with this? I mean, in life, you always pay the piper, homie. Our history, or the world history, has shown this time and time and time again. You will not get away with what you're doing. The international community are watching us. Our kids are learning from us as the world look on in disgust. My message is this. Enjoy it now, Stephen Miller, because just as history has shown, a reckoning is coming and America is waking up. Okay? And when they do, look out, partner. Last time I checked, you're definitely not Donald Trump's age. You know, always remember, truth has no party. Be well.
Look, anyone who didn't know before, you know now. Stephen Miller is a dangerous, unhinged man who is dictating most of the policy in this country right now. The Wall Street Journal just did a report today that says Trump in private has said that if it was up to Stephen Miller, there would only be 100 million Americans in this country. Just let that sink in. There's actually, right now, about 350 million Americans. So Stephen Miller, if he had it his way, would get rid of 250 million Americans because they don't look exactly like him. Why is anyone voting Republican still? Like, what could you possibly support about this? I mean, okay, just take that on its face for a minute. Where are you going to put 250 million people? Most of them, you know, American citizens born in America. Where does he want to send them to? What Miller wants is the same thing that the mustache guy wanted back in Germany in the 1930s. That's what he wants. Only people with this color skin in this country. That's what he wants. Anyone who's voting for this has problems.
Let's talk about Stephen Miller. Do you remember him, Stephen Miller? He was behind some of Trump's most controversial U.S. immigration policies. He is one of Trump's senior advisors and the architect behind the separation of families along our southern border. And even when it caused havoc and trauma for the kids, he said with confidence it was a win. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can read a book that was written by Jean Guerrero, who is a journalist, and it is called Hate Monger. She wrote a book tracing how Miller radicalized, connecting with white nationalist figures from a very young age, in spite of the fact that he was born into a Jewish family. His own uncle, by the name of David Glossier, a neuropsychologist, has called him out for betraying his Jewish roots and going against the teachings of tradition. And then there is this. Miller blocked mental health services for the children who were separated from their families at the border. He repeatedly blocked a Department of Justice plan to provide therapy to these traumatized kids who he was responsible for traumatizing. His own former colleagues have described him as a man with a view of cruelty as strategy mindset. We must never forget that policies don't come out of nowhere. They come out of the mindset of minds like his, and they matter. Steve Miller, in my mind, exemplifies one of those individuals where we can say hurt people, and he does so with impunity and a coldness about him. I'd like to end with this quote from Albert Einstein, who reminds us that the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything.
This 5'7" ghoul is the mastermind behind Trump's fascist plan. He's the Mr. Cruel. He's the one. He's the bad one of the entire Trump team. This is the evil monster right here. And on top of that, he has major stock in a company called Palantir. And Palantir is an intelligence software company, and they have many government contracts, including very lucrative ones with ICE. Government contract means we pay for it. Taxpayer-funded government contracts, right? That's part of it. Okay, so this means he has financial interest in mass deportations. This man who creates the entire immigration policy is financially benefits with mass deportation. That seems ethically horrific.
Stephen Miller, one of the architects of Trump's harshest immigration policies, owns hundreds of thousands of dollars of stock in Palantir. Palantir is a government contractor that provides data analytics to ICE. Stephen Miller helped make ICE what it is today. Palantir's contracts with ICE are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Miller's investments in Palantir are worth approximately $200,000 to $250,000. So yes, Stephen Miller profits from the harmful system he helped create. This is exactly what a major conflict of interest looks like. So what do you think? Are you bothered by this conflict of interest or not?
Stephen Miller, we will take back America. Elon Musk, just like I took your wife. This post has been deleted. So anyway, women are too emotional to be president.
I'm going to try to make it a point where I make one post a day and point out just how racist this regime is. About a month ago, they started renaming all the Army bases, right? We all know about all that. And one of them got renamed back to Lee. And while Donald Trump was speaking about it, he mentioned Robert E. Lee. We all know why they're renaming these. If you grew up south of the Mason-Dixon line, you understand that you were taught in history class that Robert E. Lee was a good man. He was a noble guy. He didn't believe in slavery. He was just fighting for his state. And nothing could be further from the truth. Robert E. Lee owned a huge plantation that he inherited along with 200 slaves from his father-in-law. His father-in-law had written in his will that all 200 slaves were to be freed within 5 years after his death. Well, Robert E. Lee never did that. In fact, Robert E. Lee was a very cruel slave owner. If one was to even break a rule, they would be taken to a barn, tied to a pole, and they would be beaten and have salt water poured on their wounds. That's the kind of man he was. He also would have his officers capture any freed slaves that they would find and sell them. Robert E. Lee was anything but a noble man. He was so disgraceful, in fact, after the war, his plantation that he owned would eventually become property of the United States government. And wanting to do something symbolic, that Virginia plantation would become Arlington National Cemetery. And here we have a president so ignorant, so stupid, who has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. Talking about Robert E. Lee and the leader he was in this country. Just another example that we have white supremacists running this country right now. They're fucking pathetic. And I'm gonna point them out every day. And I hope people of my color follow my lead and do that. I know many of you are already doing that. I don't mean to say that it's my lead, but like me and make a point to do it. It's important. Point out their disgracefulness.